There you go.
Cool. Well, here we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night. Glad you're here. Wow, we got a lot of people on tonight. So, Miss Polly, Pastor Hoyt, Miss Carolyn, Miss Robin, Angie. Thank you so much for joining us. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Dan Hoyt says, taking a break from translating. So, yeah, that can be kind of tiring. Yeah, done a couple of those. So, well, glad you joined us tonight. So, we are going to be in chapter 26 tonight from the book of Numbers. And it's another census. So, it's a lot of verses and a lot of information, but it's census information. So, lots of names, lots of numbers, and I think we'll get through it.
We'll see.
I think we'll get through it. So
Depends.
yeah. So hope everybody's been having a good week. It's been kind of crazy. It's been windy and kind of chilly and getting dark earlier. And fall has definitely come to Southern California. And then of course we have some fires going on nearby. So that's always makes everybody
Fire and
tense.
wind makes a very bad situation.
So
Dan said his message wrote itself in Spanish, so you have to translate back to English. Oh,
there you
Spanish to English translation.
There you
Oh,
go.
interesting.
That happens.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing when it happens. So
What time is your service, Dan, that you have? You have a Sunday service in downtown LA? I guess I don't really
it's at
know.
MacArthur Park.
At
right?
MacArthur Park, but when do you do your service? Just curious.
So yeah,
Maybe we could come visit
You
sometime.
can write that up there and post it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saturday. Oh.
Saturdays at 10 a.m.
Okay.
and that's in MacArthur Park. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let us know
So,
the
yeah.
location.
So which for those of you who are not from Southern California, MacArthur Park is just a few minutes from downtown LA. And
Yeah, it's not just a song.
right. And back in the day, it
To me, it's just a
defined-
song.
it defined the western border of downtown LA.
Oh.
So, and then there was an East Lake Park. So there was West Lake Park, East Lake Park, and they sort of defined the borders of downtown LA. And over the years, that area kind of became a little rough and tumble, and so MacArthur Park had kind of a unpleasant reputation. But in recent years, it's come back, and I think in part because so many street evangelists committed to being there and just bringing the presence of the Lord there, and all kinds of stuff. When I was in college or in high school. They drained the lake in the park, in the middle of the park. And when I say lake, it's for you in the East Coast and in Texas and stuff like that. It's more of a pond, but they drained it, and oh my goodness, the number of handguns they found and the number of knives
That's
that they
funny.
found was pretty incredible. So
That's funny.
yeah, so it had kind of a seedy reputation, but thanks to faithful individuals like Pastor Dan and his team and his family, the Lord is doing amazing things there. 7th and Parkview, near the southernmost oak tree.
Okay.
Good to know. So it's truly an outdoor service in the footsteps of John Wesley.
Yeah,
So-
like you're out in.
So
like-
keep it up, Dan.
like in
Keep
Africa.
It up. So, yeah.
Nice.
So here we are in
Okay.
chapter 26 in the book of Numbers, and like I said, it's a census. This is the second census prior to the Israelites entering into the Promised Land. And the interesting thing about this particular census is that most of the older generation, the original Exodus, they've died off in the wilderness. It's been 38 years.
Right.
They've died off in the wilderness, just as God said they would. So now a new census is taken, and as we'll read, it's specifically counting the number of fighting men.
Right, 20
Yeah,
years old and
20
above.
years and above. So I think it's 20 to 60, but I'm not sure.
I think so.
I think it's the upper
They
cap
could
is
serve in the
60.
army, yeah.
Right.
Something
so,
like that. Okay.
so theoretically, the vast majority of the people that are being, or the men that are being counted in this particular census, were born in the wilderness. Not all. There may have been
Right.
some that were children when the Exodus occurred, but
Right.
but by and large, the vast majority of these individuals are.
Well, so if they
although
were
it
born in the
says-
wilderness, they would be 40. Like if they were born the first year,
Yeah.
I guess they could have been born year 10 or year 20.
Yeah.
So then they'd only be 20, 30, or 20 years old.
Yeah.
But
But I think in here, I think we'll get to it later on. It says that only Joshua and Caleb.
because I was looking it up. I mean, different places, and yes. So of the adult generation that rebelled against God, the only ones who were allowed to enter are Joshua and Caleb. And Moses will survive up until this point
But he
to be
won't,
their
yeah.
leader, but he doesn't get to go in. But the children of that adult generation were not killed off. They didn't all die off. It never says that like
Right.
all ages died. You know
Right,
what I
right.
mean? So say a child was 10 when they left Egypt. Now it's 40 years later, so that person's 50. Because otherwise, why have a cap on the census?
Right.
There would be no cap. There would be nobody over
Right.
40 if they had to have been born in the wilderness
Right.
only. So there has to be a bigger age range, of this survivor. So like, I don't know, like Joshua, so Joshua and Caleb, like they were the spies, right? So they must have been like 20,
Yeah, they
when
were,
they
yeah.
went as the spies. So now they're 60,
Yeah. Because they were young men.
They were the young men,
when they
yeah.
followed Moses up the
Right.
Mount Sinai. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So the children of the rebelling generation, like 5-year-olds that left Egypt, are now 45, 2-year-olds are, 42, so there's a age range, not just like everyone had to have been born in the wilderness. I think,
Right.
makes sense to me, I don't think God would kill off the children if they weren't rebelling against him. I mean, if they were, then I suppose they would have died too. But,
Right.
But the children, if they weren't rebelling, then, they are the next generation. So when it says the entire generation died, it means the adult generation. It doesn't mean, it's like we say, well, our generation, it doesn't mean,
Right.
that people younger than us they're the next generation, but they're alive at the same time as us, I guess is what I'm trying to say,
Right.
So there's people who came out of Egypt did get to go into the promised land, but they were children when they came out of Egypt, and they weren't rebelling against God and making the bad choices that their parents or uncles and all that were making. So does that make sense? That's the way the answers I found anyway. But
So here we go. So recall that there was prior, in the previous chapter, there was a plague to punish the people for their rebellion.
right.
Okay, and it was specifically because they were rebellious, and so
Well,
God,
and they were committing sexual immorality.
and so a plague swept through, and then remember that Eleazar valiantly stopped it.
Right.
Yeah. So here we go. Verse 1 of chapter 26. Buckle up.
Right. Then it came about after the plague that the Lord spoke to Moses and Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saying, "Take a census of all the congregation of the sons of Israel from 20 years old and upward," so it doesn't give a cap, "by their fathers' households, whoever is able to go to war in Israel."
Okay.
So previously that was the cap at about 60, I believe.
Right. So, excuse me. Sorry about that. So again, it's a census specifically of the fighting eligible males.
Right. And I just wanted to correct something because it wasn't Eleazar that jumped up and
Oh, that's right.
ended it. It was Phineas.
Phineas.
His
You're right.
son.
You're
so
right.
Aaron's grandson.
My
So,
apologies.
yeah.
Yes,
So it
absolutely
was, 'cause I
correct.
was like, I don't think Eleazar
No,
did it.
it wasn't
but,
Eleazar. It was
but
Phineas.
it
You're
was
right.
Phineas.
Yeah, my mistake.
We treat a cat named Phineas. That's why I remember.
Uh,
Remember, Phineas did something good because he's an evil cat. So
right.
the
Verse
Phineas
3.
of the Bible did something good. Okay, so Moses and Eleazar the priest spoke with them in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho, saying, "Take a census of the people from 20 years old and upward, as the Lord had commanded Moses." Now the sons of Israel who came out of the land of Egypt were as follows.
And here's where we get into a lot of names and a lot of numbers, and it's breaking down this grouping, this population of perhaps 2-3 million people. It's breaking them down in family groupings. So, and that includes extended families. So, and very large families. So as we read through this, you think, oh my gosh, all these names, but you'll start to see, it'll start to kind of make sense. So we're going to start with the major groupings are the tribes by tribe, okay, and then subdivisions in each tribe, and that's how the text proceeds. So verse 5.
Reuben, Israel's firstborn, the sons of Reuben, of Hanok, the family of the Hanokites, of Palu, the family of the Palulites, of Hezron, the family of the Hezronites, of Carmi, the family of the Carmites. These are the families of the Reubenites, and those who were counted of them were 43,730.
So we start with the tribal designation, which is going to be for each one of Abraham's sons, okay, Abraham's sons. So Reuben, the firstborn, and then the leaders of the various families within the tribe of Reuben, and then many notations. Most of these notations come from some of the text from David Guzik, but in the first census, and we'll see this pattern throughout. In the first census, Reuben counted 46,500 men ready for war. 38 years later, they counted 43,730, or a loss of about 6% of their population. So this is significant. It's not just so we can fill space. It's significant because what we'll see is that some of the more rebellious tribes, their population goes down, where some of the smaller tribes that were obedient, their populations rise. So pay attention when we get to Judah, okay? Because I think you will see an interesting pattern. But here we are. So the tribe of Reuben, and then there's an aside.
The son of Palu, Eliab, the sons of Eliab, Nemuel, Dathan, and Abiram. These are the Dathan and Abiram who were called by the congregation, who fought against Moses and against Aaron in the group of Korah. So they were part of the Korathites that rebelled. When they fought against the Lord, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up along with Korah, when that group died, when the fire devoured 250 men, so that they became a warning sign. So it's just telling us that the reason the tribe's a little smaller is a couple lineages, family groups were rebelling, and then were in the part of the Korathites that rebelled and were swallowed up.
So God judged them.
Just a couple chapters back.
God he judged them. He disciplined them for their disobedience. But God is faithful, and he does not entirely wipe out the entire tribe, because they are part of the promise. So there's this important aside.
Right. The sons of Korah, however, did not die.
Okay, so they did not die. So the Reubenites would continue on. Okay, so a very interesting aside there. So then moving on to the next tribe.
The sons of Simeon, by their families, of Nemuel, the family of the Nemuelites, of Jamin, the family of the Jaminites, of Jachin, the family of the Jachinites, of Zerah, the family of the Zerahites, of Shaul, the family of the Shaulites. These are the families of the Simeonites, 22,200 in number.
Okay, so then we have the next tribe, the tribe of Simeon. Okay, and again, about 22,000 in number. In the first census, taken way back when, there were 59,000, over 59,000 war-eligible males. Okay, 38 years later, it's down to 22,000. The staggering loss of 37,000 men for this this was a staggering loss, a 63% loss. So this gives us an important clue as to, again, which tribes were probably the most disobedient, the most defiant, the most troublesome, and the ones who dishonored God the most. That's why these tribes died. That's why these people died out, is because of their generational disobedience, or their familial disobedience. Mm-hmm. Okay, we've all heard of families that, crime syndicates, right? The famous mafia families, right? Families, tradition carries on, and you find rebellious families, and that's what this is indicative of. But the Simeonites had over half of their population was lost in the wilderness, and we can attribute that pretty safely. We can attribute that to disobedience and open rebellion and sinfulness. Hey, Miss Lori, thanks for joining us. Here we go, verse 15.
The sons of Gad by their families, of Zephon, the family of the Zephonites, of Haggi, the family of the Haggites, of Shuni, the family of the Shunites, and of Ozni, the family of the Oznites, of Eri, the family of the Erites, of Arod, the family of the Arodites, of Areli, the family of the Arelites. And these are the families of the sons of Gad, according to those who were numbered, of 40,500.
Okay, so this is a rather large tribe, especially compared to Simeon. This is like double the size of Simeon. So it's interesting because I was just thinking, like, sometimes if you know people who are of Jewish heritage, some of these names sound vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder if
are
these
they
names,
really descended from?
Yeah, if they carried on. So
it's true.
But so 40,000, and this is simply the males who were eligible to serve in the military. Okay, so that does, and you can see it's a rather large family, a rather large number for just the males. So there was probably, you could at least double, probably even triple this number as far as the actual number of families associated with the lineage of Gad. Okay, so, but even having said that, in the first census there were well over 45,000 war-ready men. Now it's down to 40,000. Still significant, but still an 11% decline. Okay, 11% decline in the size of the tribes. And keep those numbers in mind, because they'll be significant towards the end. Okay, and here we go. Here we have a little aside almost, verse 19.
The sons of Judah were and Onan, but and Onan died in the land of Canaan.
So so that's recorded. It's recorded in Genesis, actually. That lineage kind of was ended somewhat, because they were in fact the sons of Judah, but died, and he was supposed to, by the law of the time, he was supposed, Onan, his brother, was supposed to take Er's wife Tamar um, and take her on as a wife, specifically for the purpose of carrying on his brother's lineage by having children with her, so that the name of would not die, because he passed away before he could have children. But Onan refused. He refused, and so it became quite problematic. Okay, so in Genesis 38, it is recorded, and again, the primary sin here, if you will, is disobedience. Onan specifically disobeyed God. This was an edict, a mandate given to the people by God, and Onan disobeyed. So let's look at Genesis chapter 38, starting in verse 6. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. Did you see a pattern here? Was so wicked that God struck him dead. Then Judah said to Onan, and according to the Levirate laws, okay, sleep with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to raise up offspring for your brother. That was the law of the time, okay? But Onan knew that the child would not be his according to the law. Biologically, he would be his, of course, but culturally, he would be considered his brother's offspring, okay? So we see some selfishness and some disobedient spirit there. So Onan knew that the child from this sexual union would not be his culturally, so he refused. Whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. Okay, so there's obviously an intentional disobedience here. Okay, and what he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death also. Okay, so we have these two brothers, sons of Judah, and both of them are considered very wicked according to God's standards.
Yeah, disobedient.
And disobedient. And the sin is their disobedience. Okay? By implication, Onan was not adverse to sleeping with his sister-in-law. He was just adverse to producing offspring with her.
Right.
So, willful disobedience. Okay? So, many times, even today, a euphemism for somebody who acts in such a manner is onanism. So even to this day, it's an archaic, but it's a recognized term for somebody. And in the 18th century, in the 1800s, I should say, the 1800s and the early 20th century, many theologians associated this with the sin of masturbation, but this is not what's going on here.
Yeah, it's not masturbation.
No, it's willful disobedience
Right.
to complying with God's edicts for the benefit of the society at that time. So, continuing on, verse 20.
So how did Tamar produce any offspring?
I think I misspoke. Produced offspring prior to his death.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay. Because, go back to the Genesis passage. What is it?
So the Lord put him to death, but if you go here to this chart, you can see that and Tamar
They did
produce
have Zerah and Perez.
Yeah.
So they had offspring.
Mm-hmm.
And then he passed away, and Judah just wanted to have more offspring, and Onan didn't want to participate. Okay, that's what I was wondering. It's like, well, how did there become any? What happened? How could the tribe of Judah, keep going?
But this is significant because we know that the tribe of Judah is is the tribe that Jesus
Comes from, yeah,
comes from.
because King David is
Okay.
from it. And we see
Right,
Solomon.
because King
Right.
David is from it, and then the story of Ruth and Boaz, that's in there.
And Rahab.
Rahab and Solomon, yeah, that's in there. Rahab the Canaanite. So it's a very, very, very significant tribe
Right.
in God's economy, and Onan, both Ur and Onan, were wicked, and so they did not obey God's edicts and commands, and it cost them.
Right. So they were put to death, but
Mm-hmm.
Ur and Tamar had 2 children, according to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just checking. So, okay.
Verse
So
20.
the sons of Judah by their families were of Shelah, the family of Shelonites, of Perez, the family of the Perizzites, of Zerah, the family of the Zerahites.
Okay, so the line of Judah wasn't destroyed. Just that was an interesting aside.
Okay.
Yeah. So, verse 21.
The sons of Perez were of Hezron, the family of the Hezronites, and Hamuel, the family of the Hamulites. These are the families of Judah, by those who were numbered of them, 76,500.
Okay.
So they have the biggest number, I think, of all the tribes.
Right.
That's
In the
fine.
first census, there was 74,000. Again, a significant number. And now they are one of the tribes that actually increases in population by almost 2,000. So it's a 3% gain. Okay. So we see their tribe raising up. Okay.
Robin has a question. Was there ever a census of the livestock or only people? I don't think, at least here at this point, like
Right.
Exodus and Numbers and, the 2 that happened in Numbers, because the first one was in the first chapter of Numbers, the first census.
Right.
And now, but it never talks about recording the animals.
There are places in the Bible where it talks about as a means of indicating wealth.
Right.
Like for King Solomon and various kings throughout the book of Judges and First, Second Samuel, and other places where it's noted and it's recorded that there were so many thousand horses and so many thousand steer or oxen, heads of oxen, but that's more indicative of saying like Elon Musk is worth so many billions of dollars, and Warren Buffett has a net worth of such and such millions of dollars or billions of dollars. So it's used it's sort of in that context. Okay, and it's also used to indicate how fruitful and productive the promised land proves to be. So good question. So verse 23.
The sons of Issachar by their families of Tola, the family of the Tolaites, of Puvah, the family of the Punites, of Jashub, the family of the Jashubites, of Shimron, the family of the Shimronites. These are the families of Issachar by those who were numbered of them, 64,300.
Okay, so again, Issachar would have been one of the original 12 brothers, the tribe of Issachar, okay, divided according to their families. And again, a sizable tribe, over 54,000 war-ready men, okay, and they show an 18% gain.
Right.
Okay, an 18% gain. And later in subsequent books and chapters, we see how these tribes were rebellious, supportive, followers of making sure that Baal and other pagan idols were not honored or were lifted up and elevated incorrectly. We see these things happen, and so these censuses become important in showing, if you will, the tribe's alignment with following God's word. Verse 26.
The sons of Zebulun by their families, of Sered, the family of the Seredites, of Elon, the family of the Elonites, of Jaleel, the family of the Jaleelites. These are the families of the Zebulunites by those who were numbered of them, 60,500.
Okay, and now we're seeing the pattern. Tribal
increasing,
name,
yeah.
family names.
Right.
Okay. 57,000. Now they're up to 60,000. So they have a 5% increase.
Yeah.
Okay, so this tribe is growing. Okay, so we can roughly surmise that these tribes, or from this tribe, I mean the families from this tribe, are obedient to God's word, and they are prospering. Okay, reasonably so. Reasonably so. Okay. Verse 28.
The sons of Joseph by their families, Manasseh and Ephraim. The sons of Manasseh of Machir, the family of the Machirites, and Machir fathered Gilead of Gilead, the family of the Gileadites.
Okay, so again, Joseph, his sons are counted in the census. Okay, Manasseh and Ephraim, we talked about them previously in Genesis. Okay, and so we see these tribal designations, and then the sons of Gilead. Sorry.
These are the sons of Gilead of Lazar, the family of the Lazarites, of Helek, the family of the Helekites, and of Asriel, the family of the Asrielites, and of Shechem, the family of the Shechemites, and of Shemida, the family of the Shemidites, and of Hepher, the family of the Hepherites.
Okay. Now, to our
Shemidites.
21st century ears, this seems like a lot of ites, a lot of difficult names to pronounce and stuff like that. But these names, again, were so significant to the Hebrew people. It grounded them. It helped them know who and what and where they were. Okay. The same reason we do Ancestry.com and
Right.
and what are the other one? 23andMe, and we
Right.
do those things. Why?
Why do we care?
want-
Why do
yeah.
we want to know? Well,
It helps us to know. It helps to ground us.
yeah.
So
I
when
mean-
we're reading through these are not just names to make us stumble with our tongues. These are names that have meaning and significance for a Hebrew to know who he or she actually is.
Right.
So-
It's just, if they're important enough for God to have had written in the scriptures and maintained and, for all these years, I think it's important enough to at least attempt to read them,
Exactly.
I'm not sure that I'm saying them correctly, but I think it is important to at least try to read them because, names have a lot of meaning. They carry a lot of weight. Scripture, culturally, but even today, names are important.
They are.
That's the big controversy about pronouns and stuff. But and that's the whole issue that a lot of people are struggling with. But if you think about it, at the very core of it, like, why does it matter? It matters so much, to have the proper reference or name, and the Satan likes to try and take what God ordains and God gives us, as we're created in His image, and Satan loves to twist that and cause pain and anguish with all of that, So that's what's really so important and so amazing, is to stay grounded in who we are in Scripture, and who we are in God's eyes, and who we are, because He's the one who made us. He's the one who ordains everything about this, ordains the names of the children, ordains the family names. He's going to ordain the inheritance, the boundaries of the countries, of the nations, of each tribe, of each, So it's just amazing how much God cares about these details. I guess that's when I come across passages like this, one of the things that strikes me is how much God cares about the details. And if He cares enough about these details to preserve them for all this time, I think it's worth a go to try and say them and read them and speak, not just gloss over it and say there's a lot of crazy names here and go to the bottom bottom line. It's important.
Well, case in point, with this very next verse, the next verse. Now, arguably, the purpose of the census is to number to find out how many fighting eligible males are in the tribe or in the Hebrew population. But then we have this interesting aside in the very next verse, which sort of exemplifies what Gay's talking about. Right here.
Now, Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, had no sons, only daughters. And the names of the daughters of Zelophehad were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tisra.
Why is this significant?
Tirza. There's an R, RZA. Tirza.
Why is this significant?
Very
because, one, if it's just a census of fighting men, who cares about the women?
Yeah, the girls don't count. Literally, they're
But
not
they
counting
count
the
to
girls.
God.
But they count to
God.
And they're given the ability to inherit. So, again, this is like, it kind of goes to, women shouldn't be ministry leaders or whatever. It's like, okay, well, God thinks women count.
Right.
Because otherwise he could have just skipped over that.
Yeah, exactly. And if this was just all made up and just some what's the term that keeps getting
Like it's a myth or something, or
male centric. It was just anyway.
Patriarchal or
patriarchal. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. But here we have this aside tucked in the middle of all of these senses.
Yeah.
That by the way, he didn't have any sons, but he had daughters.
And here
they're
are their
named
names.
in the
this
Bible.
This is so awesome.
so it perfectly exemplifies what Gay was talking about, and what we've tried to convey all the times that we meet with y'all is that you and I and we matter to God.
Right.
We matter to God, and He knows you better than you know yourself.
Right.
And He found it significant to name these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women.
That's awesome.
Okay, in this census for quote unquote war ready or war eligible males. Mm-hmm. Bam, we have these 5 lovely ladies here.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Verse 34.
So these are the families of Manasseh, and those who were numbered of them were 52,700.
So, and again, Manasseh, a tribe descended from Joseph, right? And 38 years later, they have a 64% gay. They've
increased.
More than doubled.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Not doubled. So doubled.
Yeah.
So anyway,
double would be 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So pretty amazing, eh? So verse 35.
These are the sons of Ephraim by their families: of Shutelah, the family of the Shutelathites; of Becher, the family of the Becherites; of Tahan, the family of the Tahanites. These are the sons of Shutelah; of Aaron, the families of the Aaronites. These are the families of the son of Ephraim, by those who were numbered of them 32,500. These are the sons of Joseph by their families.
Okay, and now in here we have a loss. We have a 20% loss. Okay, original census was 40,000. Now they're down to 32,500 fighting individuals.
Not very obedient.
But there's a loss there. So which is troubling.
Dan has a comment. This also forms the legal basis of Jesus' claim to the throne of David through Mary. Exactly.
Yep.
Avoiding the blood curse put on the line before the captivity.
Exactly. That's why it's significant, because if Jesus, from a Jewish perspective, if Jesus is the Messiah, there are certain criteria that have to be met, and these census data show that Jesus is qualified to be who he says he was, and who he is.
Right. So if all this wasn't recorded, it wouldn't be as traceable, trackable.
Right.
Exactly.
Of
his legitimacy.
Thank you,
Thanks
Dan.
for pointing that out,
Excellent
Dan.
point. Yeah.
Good job, Pastor Dan.
Excellent point. And we see the beauty, the interwoven tapestry that the Bible is, and it's just absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. Verse 38.
The sons of Benjamin by their families: of Bela, the families of the Belaites; of Ashbel, the family of the Ashbelites; of Aram, the family of the Aramites; of Shepham, the family of the Shephamites; of Hupham, the family of the Huphamites. The sons of Bela were Ard and Naaman; of the Ard, of Ard, the family of the Ardites, of Naaman, the family of the Naamites. These are the sons of Benjamin by their families, and those who were numbered of them, 45,600.
Okay.
So how much did they increase? Only 29%. Oh, 29%. That's pretty
right.
good.
Their tribe increased in population by 29%.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see an increase in there in the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, so and you'll recall that later on, centuries from then, now, that Saul, okay, not Saul who became Paul, but King Saul, descended from the tribe of Benjamin.
Right.
We'll see that. Okay.
Verse 42, these are the sons of Dan by their families, of Shuham, the family of the Shuhamites. These are the families of Dan by their families. All the families of the Shuhamites, by those who were numbered of them, were 64,400.
Okay, a rather large tribe, even though it was a rather small number of individuals directly descended or from Dan. Okay, so there's a gain of 3%. Okay, so going from 62,000 to 64,000, it's a gain of approximately 3%. So we see that tribe raising up slightly. Okay.
The sons of Asher by the families of Imnah, the family of the Imnites, of Ishvi, the family of the Ishvites, of Beriah, the family of the Beriites, of the sons of Beriah, of Heber, the family of the Heberites, of Malchiel, the family of the Machaliites, and the name of the daughter of Asher, here's another female, was Sarah. These are the families of the sons of Asher by those who were numbered of them, 53,400.
Okay.
Interesting.
So this tribe also shows a gain over the 38-year time span, a 29% gain.
That's a pretty big gain.
Yeah, 29% gain, almost 12,000 fighting eligible males.
Right.
Okay, which indicates a significant number of children and females. Okay. Verse 48.
The sons of Naphtali by their families, of Jaziel, the family of the Jazielites, of Guni, the family of the Gunites, of Jazer, the family of the Jazerites, of Shillam, the family of the Shillamites. These are the families of Naphtali by their families, and those who were numbered of them were 45,400.
Which is a significant number, but in the first census there were 53,000, over 53,000.
So there's a negative.
Yeah, so there's a negative
Net.
there's a net loss of 15%. So we that gives us a clue into what's going on in the tribe of Naphtali.
51. These are the ones who were numbered of the sons of Israel. So here's the total count of the able-bodied, able to go to war, 20 years old and up, 601,730.
Okay. So an interesting note, there were, in the first census done some 38 years prior, there were over 603,000 men ready for war. And oh my goodness, scholars have
Going crazy.
Gone nuts speculating over this and saying these numbers are impossible. You just don't understand how the Hebrews numbered things, and it's probably closer to 6,350 men.
There's no way it could be in the hundreds of thousands?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, huge debate that you just no, it couldn't possibly have been that many people, right? But God is pretty accurate.
Right?
Right? He's pretty accurate. So, but notice that they're overall, over this time span, there's actually a loss, a slight loss in the entire, looking at it in its entirety. There's about a 0.3% loss. So if you know anything about population dynamics and population genetics, typically speaking, populations go up, okay, unless there's some kind of a disaster.
Right.
Okay, but generally speaking, human populations grow steadily upward. And I think today on the planet Earth we're close to 8 billion people. I think when I was like in grade school, I think it was only like 2 billion people.
Right.
So, so even in
Right.
our lifetimes, we've seen significant population growth. And of course, it's geometric, and as the numbers get bigger, the population gets bigger. But for a population to stay basically the same in 38 years is indicative of some problem. There's a problem going on. There's a problem
Well,
somewhere.
there were several plagues that God had to institute,
Yeah.
and people got swallowed up by the earth, and it's
Right.
significant numbers of people.
So God had promised that that the descendants of Abraham would be like the grains of sand on the shore, and it's happening. These are not small numbers of people, but imagine if they had been obedient.
Right. If he hadn't had to allow that current generation of adults to die off, they would have been to the promised land in about 2 weeks also. So they might have had a similar population as they were entering, because they would have been there in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If they hadn't disobeyed,
That's true.
But they also, they would have, if he hadn't had to wait, then they were taking 40 years, there would many more births would have happened, and because the current adult generation wouldn't have died off.
Exactly. The commentator Guzik expands on this. He says the stagnation, and this is truly a stagnation. That reproductive rate is not. A population is not sustainable. Okay. Right now, there are many first world countries that are on the brink of cultural disaster because they are not having children. Japan, Italy come to mind. The United States is hovering. We're right at the edge of sustainable population
Dan says Japan
growth.
and China.
Yeah, China.
In China, they're not allowed to have
Yeah.
more than
Yeah,
like,
China
I think, or
kind
at
of
least
shot
for a
itself
while
in
it
the
was like
foot
that.
because they had the one-child policy, and there was mass genocide or essentially murder,
Infanticide
of females because everybody wanted a son to carry on the name. So there was huge problems with that. But yeah, Japan, China, Italy, the population is not sustainable. So yeah, how often in the 40 years did the people move? That's open to debate. Some scholars that I've read said that they only moved like 2 or 3 times. Others said that they moved a bit more frequently.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it's mentioned a few times that they moved from this location to that location, as we've been studying through the book of Numbers.
Yeah.
And in Exodus, because they're both versions of kind of this similar time period.
Yeah.
There's some crossover there chronologically a little bit. So yeah, but that's a good question. But it doesn't sound like they were moving like all the time. Like not every week or something like that. But they did move several times.
Yeah.
At least whenever that pillar of cloud started moving.
Right.
During the day, or the pillar of fire by night, they moved.
Right. We know they moved because God did. He took great measures to ensure that everything would move in an orderly
Right.
fashion.
Right.
Pastor Dan says China currently incentivizes having 3 or more children, but the people are just not reproducing. Yeah.
Because it's expensive to have all those kids.
China
They've
is
turned
incentivizing it
around. Now
because-
they
yeah.
weren't doing that before.
Yeah.
They were
so-
limiting for a long time.
And that's a common theme, is that people are just not having kids like they did.
Right.
So, and like I said, the United States is hovering right on the edge of a sustainable population growth. We all laugh at the 2.1 kids. If you remember your college or your high school biology, and it said, the average family has 2.1 kids, and you're like, well, am I the 0.1?
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, it's an average. It's an average number. So 2 is replacement level. So in order for a population to continue, each family ought to have more than two to children.
Mm.
So that's in a nutshell. That's kind of how that works.
Okay.
I like what Guzik says.
Uh-huh.
Guzik says, reflecting on this idea of essentially non-growth. The stagnation of population is reflective of Israel's spiritual state during these 38 years. We should have expected them to grow. Biology supports that as a normal course in the course of generations. Instead, they simply stayed where they were. The 38 years in the wilderness were years of no growth, no advance, just going in circles until the generation of unbelief had died and a generation of faith had arisen, a generation bold enough to take the promised land. Mm-hmm. Ouch. Ouch. So he states that quite well. Verse 52.
Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Among these the land shall be divided as an inheritance according to the number of names. To a larger group you shall increase their inheritance, and to a smaller group you shall decrease their inheritance. Each shall be given their inheritance corresponding to the total of those who were numbered of them. So basically by the size.
The tribe, the size of land that the tribe would be given was proportional to the population size.
Right, which makes sense.
Which
if there's
makes sense, right?
more people, you need a bigger space.
Boom.
So
Okay.
God's kind of logical.
Verse 55.
But the land shall be divided by lot. So they shall receive their inheritance according to the names of the tribes of their fathers. Corresponding to the selection by lot, their inheritance shall be divided between the larger and smaller groups.
Okay, and this is to so this is so that the larger tribe wouldn't overpower the smaller tribes and pick out the prime real estate. Okay, it would be done by so somewhat randomized, so that again, so that might couldn't overpower.
Right.
So yeah, verse 57.
These are those who were numbered of the Levites, according to their families: of Gershon, the family of the Gershonites; of Kohath, the family of the Kohathites; of Merari, the family of the Merarites. These are the families of Levi: the family of the Libnites, the family of the Hebronites, the family of the Malites, the family of the Mushites, the family of the Koraites, and Kohath fathered Amram.
Verse 59.
And the name of Amram's wife, here's another woman, was Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, who was born to Levi in Egypt. And she bore to Amram Aaron and Moses and their sister Miriam.
Okay, so again, the Levites were not entitled to a portion of the land because they were serving in the temple. Okay, but they are remembered and their lineage is traced, so that the tribes that are in the Levite clans are properly recognized, and we're also reminded of that why the Levites are positioned, if you will, as they are.
And to Aaron were born Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. But Nadab and Abihu died when they offered strange fire before the Lord. Remember back in Exodus?
Disobedience.
They said, oh, we can just do this tabernacle thing.
Right.
And God struck them dead. Verse 62, those who were numbered of them were 23,000, every male from a month old and upward, for they were not numbered among the sons of Israel, since no inheritance was given to them among the sons of Israel.
Right. They would not be due land, but they would be due. They would receive portions to sustain themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And they actually get assigned to cities.
And they get
throughout all of the land, throughout the promised land.
Yeah.
They get dispersed to different cities.
And we talked about that way back in Numbers 18. The Lord said to Aaron, "You shall have no inheritance in their land, nor any portion among them. I am your portion,
right,
and your inheritance among the sons of Israel."
So God
but there
will
were
provide
23,000 males, and again, but they're counted from 6 months old because their training would begin.
Actually, from 1 month old.
Yeah, when they were
it says
6
a month old.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 month
because
old.
they would be set apart, and essentially their training would begin right out of the gate.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Verse 63. These are the ones, Levites, who were numbered by Moses and Eleazar the priest, who numbered the sons of Israel in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho.
okay. So even the Levites are included in this census, but not for fighting purposes, but just
For serving
for
the
service
Lord.
purposes.
But 64. But among these there was not a man of those who were numbered by Moses and Aaron the priest, who numbered the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord had said of them, they shall certainly die in the wilderness, and not a man was left of them, except Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun.
Okay, so this is reminding us that the older generation, the
All had to die.
the adult generation who fled Egypt, all died in the wilderness. They all died they died in the wilderness
Because of their disobedience.
Yeah, it says not a man of those who were numbered by Moses. Yeah, so they will certainly die. Not a man was left of them. Not an adult was left of them,
Right.
except Caleb and Joshua. So none of those counted. This is Guzik again. None of those counted in the first census were counted in the second. That was the old generation, the generation of unbelief who perished in the wilderness. They obviously had no inheritance in the promised land except Caleb and Joshua. And that brings us to the end of chapter 26.
Oh, did you do 65? You did.
I did.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, so Joshua and Caleb are the only ones who were old enough to be counted in the first census that were counted in the second census.
So the take-home message is that disobedience has consequences.
Right.
It has consequences. And that brings us to the end of our chapter.
Yay.
We will not be here next Thursday.
Right, next Thursday.
Yeah.
Right now we have plans to attend an event, so
Yeah.
that changes. We'll let you know.
But we'll make sure we get a reminder out.
Yeah,
But
that
we
we're-
will not be here next
Thursday, which is November 14th.
November 14th.
But we'll be here after
But
that.
we'll pick up
Yeah, one after that, and then it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So on the 28th.
Yeah, so we'll pick it up in chapter 27
All right, you
on
guys.
November 14th.
Good to see you
Until
all.
then, blessings to each and every one
Blessings
of
to
you.
you. Bye.
Good night.
Have a good night.